All right, so we're diving into Earth grids and ley lines. You guys send in some really interesting stuff for this one. Let's see what we can figure out.
This topic, it really gets people thinking, like, what if there's this hidden structure to the world, this network of energy linking all these ancient places,
Mm.
Maybe it even affects us today. We're going to look at different theories, historical connections, but the main question is, could there be something more to our planet?
Okay, yeah. So one thing that really pops out from what we've been rooting is how ancient civilizations, maybe they understood the Earth in a way we're just starting to get now.
Right.
This megalithomania video, for example, it's saying those cultures, they didn't just like randomly put those monuments wherever.
Yeah.
It was all part of this big plan, a system connecting sites across like entire continents.
Exactly. And to understand that, we have to talk about geomancy and geodesy.
Okay.
These ancient practices, they were all about understanding the Earth's energy and its dimensions.
So not just like abstract ideas.
No, no. This was deep, like built into how they saw the world.
So like finding the center, that was really important to them, right?
Yes.
The video keeps going back to the Great Pyramid and what it might mean.
Right. There's this theory that the Great Pyramid, it was actually on the original prime meridian.
Huh.
And a lot of ancient cultures, they saw this point, this omphalos, as like the energetic center of the world.
Mm.
Think about it. Even today, we measure time and where we are based on, meridians in the equator.
Yeah.
What if that idea goes way further back than we think?
Whoa, yeah. That's kind of mind-blowing. And speaking of the Great Pyramid, the video mentions all these details about its size.
Oh.
It's like its height and perimeter. When you multiply them by 43,200, you get numbers that are really close to the Earth's polar radius and the equatorial circumference.
And that's not all. The base length of the pyramid, it's supposedly exactly 1/8 of a minute of degree of the Earth's polar circumference.
Wait, really?
Yeah. This isn't just random. That kind of precision, it tells us that the Great Pyramid, it was designed to hold ancient knowledge, like a time capsule built to last forever.
Like they were saying, hey, people in the future, check this out.
Exactly.
But how did they get it so accurate?
Yeah.
We're talking about moving huge stones. And the video mentions these sacred quarries and evidence that they might have had like advanced technology.
Right, like the unfinished obelisk at Aswan. It shows how precise they were,
Oh.
how much they understood geometry.
Uh-huh.
It's 365.4 nautical miles in the Great Pyramid, which, it's like the number of days in a year.
Right.
And then we see similar stuff at other megalithic sites around the world.
Right. The video talks about those weird scoop marks
Yes.
at Aswan, Ollantaytambo, Sacsayhuaman, even Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Like they all knew this secret way of building maybe a global network sharing knowledge about these massive structures.
It's a really interesting possibility. Were they using technologies that, I don't know, we haven't rediscovered? Or techniques we've just totally forgotten? This idea of like master builders all over the world, that's definitely intriguing. But then it makes you wonder, why did that knowledge get lost?
Yeah, good point. Was it on purpose
Hmm.
to keep these places mysterious and, enchanted, or did something big happen and that knowledge just vanish? Let's switch gears a bit and talk about those grid systems.
Okay.
The video takes us back to ancient texts, like the Book of Enoch.
Uh-huh.
It describes angels measuring the earth with cords, like a divine survey team.
Hmm.
Could that be like an early idea of geodesy?
Could be, yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely interesting. And when you think about it, this grid system idea, it's not just from Western traditions. Remember those maps we talked about?
Mhm.
Like the Piri Race map?
The one that shows coastlines that weren't even discovered yet.
Exactly. That map and others like it, they make you think that these ancient cultures, they knew things we thought they couldn't. Maybe they got that knowledge from a much older civilization. And remember, indigenous cultures, they have their own versions of grids too.
Right.
Like the Native American myth about Spider Grandmother making power spots all over the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds a lot like an Earth grid.
So we've got old texts, maps, and myths all saying that people way back, they didn't just see the earth as rocks and water. They saw these patterns and energies that we're only just starting to understand.
Exactly. And that brings us to modern research on Earth grids. In the 20th century, you had researchers coming up with all these geometric models.
Okay.
The dodecahedron, the icosahedron, the Becker-Hagen's grid. It's fascinating how modern science is looking back at these old ideas and trying to map them onto the Earth.
So these researchers are basically saying the Earth has these invisible energy lines running through it, making specific shapes.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. And what's really interesting is that some of these models, they seem to line up with weird zones, like the Bermuda Triangle, and of course where they built those ancient sites. We're starting to see links between things that seemed totally separate before.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying that the Bermuda Triangle could be linked to the layout of the Great Pyramid through some, like, invisible energy grid?
It's possible. And then there's crustal displacement theory, too. Some researchers say that the Earth's crust, it's moved over time.
Really?
Yeah, which might explain why some of those sites don't line up perfectly with how we understand the grid now. It adds another layer of, mystery to the whole thing.
Okay, I need a minute to process all that.
It's a lot.
We went from ancient myths to, like, geometric models to continents moving around.
It is a lot.
The big question is, what is this energy that these grids are supposed to be channeling? The video mentions Earth's magnetic field and telluric currents. Could that be it?
Those are definitely important. Think about it. Magnetic anomalies and places where telluric current builds up, they've been found at a lot of these ancient sites, from those strange chambers in New England to Stonehenge. What if these cultures knew how to use these natural forces in ways we've forgotten about?
So they were building on, like, energetic hotspots.
Yeah.
But why? We're talking about energy. What were they doing with it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
All right, let's jump back in. Last time, we were talking about how maybe ancient cultures, they understood and used the Earth's energy in ways we're only starting to rediscover. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
It is, and it brings up so many questions. We were talking about, magnetic anomalies and those telluric currents at those ancient sites.
Right?
But how did they use these energies? What effect did it have on people?
The video mentioned some pretty wild stuff, like healing and even, like, altered states of consciousness.
I know, right?
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, but think about it. If these sites, they were put on these energetic hotspots on purpose, and the structures themselves, they were built to work with this energy,
Yeah.
wouldn't it make sense that it could affect, like, the human body and mind?
Yeah, I guess so. But do we have any evidence for that?
Well, let's look at those magnetic stone spheres they found in Scotland and Ireland.
Okay.
The video says some of them are magnetic in both ways, positive and negative.
Right.
That's already strange. But what's even weirder is people say these spheres, they have these, like, almost magical or healing effects.
Yeah. And the video said those spiral patterns carved on some of them, they're like the way telluric currents move through the land.
Exactly. Like they were mapping the energy onto these objects.
It's like they knew how to work with these, like, hidden energies in ways we just don't get yet.
Right. It makes you think differently about what's possible.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. We've got this Earth grid, these lines connecting ancient sites, and this mysterious energy flowing through it all. It's like a living thing, all connected.
That's a good way to put it.
And if we could figure out how to understand it, work with it.
Right. Imagine what we could do.
But I know what you're thinking. Does any of this actually, hold up scientifically?
I know. Good point. And, I mean, science is still catching up in a lot of ways. But there is more and more research showing a connection between the Earth's magnetic field and, like, human health and even our consciousness.
Oh, really? Tell me more about that. That's fascinating.
For example, studies have shown that when the Earth's magnetic field changes, it can mess with our sleep, our mood, even how we think. There's even evidence that certain electromagnetic frequencies, they can affect our brain waves and maybe even cause those altered states of consciousness.
So it's like we're always surrounded by this energy, whether we know it or not. And maybe the ancients, they knew how to, like, tune in to those frequencies and use them to their advantage.
Exactly. Maybe they knew how to work with this energy in ways we haven't even thought of yet.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's go back to the ancient sites themselves. The video was saying they weren't just built on those energetic hotspots.
Right.
They were also designed to, like, interact with the energy in very specific ways. How did they do that?
That's where things get really interesting. One theory is that the shapes of those structures and the materials they used, that played a big part in how they worked with the Earth's energy.
So the shape of a pyramid, it could, like, make the energy stronger or focus it in a certain direction.
Exactly. Like a giant antenna.
Wow.
And the materials, like certain types of stone, they could affect how the energy flows too. Remember how quartz crystals, they can create electricity when you put pressure on them?
Mm-hmm.
That's the piezoelectric effect. What if they were using that in their buildings?
That makes sense. And what about how they placed the stones within these structures? It wasn't random, right?
No, definitely not. The video talks about how researchers found evidence of magnetic alignments in how they placed the stones at Avebury and Stonehenge, for example.
Hmm.
It's like they were carefully arranging those huge stones to create specific energy effects, like circuits in a giant energy machine.
It's just incredible to think that they might have known this stuff thousands of years ago. But if they were manipulating this energy, what was the point? What were they trying to do?
Well, we've talked about healing, fertility, and those altered states of consciousness.
Right.
But here's where it gets really mind-blowing. Some researchers, they think these ancient sites, they were part of this global network, like an energetic internet connecting different parts of the world.
Wait, a global energy grid connecting all these ancient sites? You're kidding, right?
I know it sounds crazy, but think about those long-distance alignments we talked about, those ley lines.
Yeah.
Could they be like pathways for the energy to flow between the sites? What if they were sending information or even consciousness across huge distances?
Okay, now that is just wild. But if that's even possible, what does it say about those ancient civilizations?
It suggests they were connected in ways we never imagined, that they knew about the world globally in ways we've totally underestimated. It means our history books are missing a big piece of the story.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, what happened to that knowledge? Did we just forget it over time, or was it like hidden on purpose?
Whoa, now we're getting into conspiracy theories. But let's stick to the, science for a sec. Is there any research that actually backs up this idea of a global energy grid?
There's no absolute proof yet, but there are some interesting clues.
Okay.
For example, researchers have found these underground waterways and aquifers, and they go on for miles and miles all over the world.
Hmm.
Some people believe these waterways, they could be like channels for energy, linking different parts of the planet.
So like rivers of energy underground.
Yeah, and it ties into that piezoelectric effect we talked about.
Oh.
If those waterways are flowing through rocks that are full of quartz, they could be making electric currents that travel really far. And remember cymatics.
Yeah.
What if those vibrations are traveling through these underground networks too?
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So we could be standing on this huge hidden network of energy and not even know it.
It's a pretty amazing thought, isn't it?
It is. And a little scary.
Yeah, I know. And who knows what other secrets are waiting to be discovered.
Okay, I need a minute to take all this in. We went from healing stones to global energy grids to vibrating water.
I know, it's a lot.
It's a lot to process.
But that's what's so cool about this topic. It makes you question everything, see the world in a whole new way.
Yeah, I definitely feel like my perspective is shifting. But before we get totally lost in the, cosmic implications of all this,
Right.
let's bring it back down to Earth. If this ancient knowledge about energy is real, what can we learn from it? How can we use it in our lives today?
That's the question, isn't it? And I think it's why this topic is so fascinating to us. We might not have all the answers, but I think there's a deeper lesson in how the ancients saw the Earth.
What do you mean?
They saw the Earth as alive,
Yeah,
a sacred being that we should respect and honor.
right.
They understood that they were part of this bigger web of life connected to everything. We've kind of lost touch with that.
Yeah, I think you're right. We've become really disconnected from nature.
We have. We're so focused on technology and artificial solutions that we've forgotten about the natural world and its power.
So how do we get back to that ancient wisdom, that feeling of being connected to the earth?
I think it starts with awareness, noticing the energy around us, how everything's connected, and how sacred the Earth is.
And what about those ancient sites themselves? Do you think they still hold some of that wisdom?
I think they do.
Mm.
These places, they were made to work with the Earth's energy, and I think they can still be like gateways to a deeper understanding. But it's not just about going to see them. It's about going there with respect, an open mind, and being ready to listen to what they can teach us.
It's like going on a pilgrimage, not just a vacation.
Exactly.
You're talking about a deeper connection.
Right.
Okay, ready for the last part of our Earth grids and ley lines journey. It's been quite a ride. We've gone from ancient myths to, cutting-edge science.
It has been a journey, and we've only scratched the surface. There's so much to this topic, It really makes you think, how much don't we know about our own planet?
Yeah, I'm feeling that, a sense of awe, but also kind of overwhelmed. We've opened up this whole, Pandora's box of crazy ideas.
I know what you mean, but that's what's so great about it, right? It makes us think bigger, consider things we never thought of before, and you don't have to get it all at once. Just let it sink in. Those connections, they'll come.
Good advice. I need to remember that. Just breathe and enjoy the ride. So what else haven't we talked about yet? What other cool stuff is there?
Well, remember that idea of a global energy grid connecting the ancient sites?
Mm-hmm.
The video mentions this concept that adds another layer to that. Cymatics.
Cymatics? Remind me what that is again?
It's how sound and vibrations affect, like physical stuff. Think of those patterns you see when you vibrate sand on a plate.
Oh, right. I've seen those. They're so cool. But how does that connect to Earth grids in ancient places? It seems like a big leap.
Well, some researchers think the Earth itself is always vibrating, creating all these sounds and frequencies that we can't even hear.
So, like a giant invisible orchestra all around us. That's wild.
Right. And just like those sand patterns, those vibrations could be shaping the actual land, affecting how energy flows, maybe even messing with our consciousness.
Okay, I see how that fits with the energy grid idea, but is there any proof that the Earth is actually vibrating like that?
The video talks about some interesting things like the Bristol hum, this low droning sound that people hear in different parts of the world. Some think it's connected to the Earth's natural vibrations.
Hmm.
And don't forget about the sounds from the northern lights, those like shrieks and whistles they pick up as radio waves.
Whoa, so even the northern lights make sound and vibrations. It's like the whole planet is singing.
Exactly. And then, of course, you've got earthquakes and volcanoes. Those are pretty powerful ways for the Earth to show its vibrational energy.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm starting to understand just how big this sonic landscape is. But if they couldn't hear those vibrations, how would ancient cultures have known about them?
Good question. Some researchers think they might have used, like, dowsing rods or other tools that could pick up on subtle energy fields and vibrations.
Like those rods people use to find water.
Exactly. And maybe some cultures learned to tune their own bodies to those frequencies to feel the Earth's energy more directly.
So they were like human antennas picking up on the Earth's vibrations. Wow.
That's the idea. And if they could do it, maybe we can too. But the question is, how would they have used that knowledge when they were building these sites and where they chose to put them? That's the next piece of this puzzle.
Well, the video talks about some pretty out there stuff, like using sound and vibrations to actually shape the land, make energy vortexes, even lift those giant stones.
I know, it sounds crazy, right? Like something out of a fantasy book. But there are stories in ancient texts from all over the world that talk about using sound for stuff like that. And some researchers today, they've actually done it on a small scale.
So sonic levitation, it might not be so impossible after all. That's incredible. But how would they make sounds strong enough to do something like that?
That's the big question. One idea is that they used instruments, trumpets, horns, drums, things like that, and they'd play them in specific patterns at specific frequencies to create these super powerful sound waves. And some cultures might have used chanting or singing together to do the same thing.
So these ancient places weren't just silent, they were full of sound and vibration. Maybe they even used it for like incredible feats of engineering.
That's what it seems like, and it totally changes how we see these cultures and what they could do. It's like we're starting to see the world through their eyes, noticing all those hidden connections and energies that they were in tune with.
I feel like Alice down the rabbit hole. Everything I thought I knew about history and like the world is upside down now.
That's the fun part, right? The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
Oh.
But that mystery keeps us curious, keeps us asking questions, keeps us searching for more.
Okay, I'm ready to embrace the mystery. But before we get too lost in all the cosmic stuff, let's bring it back down to Earth. If the ancients knew all this, what can we learn from them? How can we use this in our lives today?
That's a great question, and I think it's at the heart of why this topic is so interesting to us.
Yeah.
We might not have all the answers yet, but there are some important lessons we can learn from how the ancients saw the world and their connection to the Earth.
Like what? Give us something to think about.
Well, I think the biggest thing is they understood that consciousness isn't just in our brains. They saw it as this basic part of reality connected to everything. And they thought that if we could become more aware, expand our consciousness, we could understand ourselves and the universe better.
That's a powerful idea. It really challenges how we see things today, that everything's just material. It's like they were saying, hey, there's so much more to reality than what you can see and touch.
Exactly. And I think that's something we really need to remember now. If we can start seeing consciousness as something bigger than just our brains, it opens up all these new possibilities.
Okay, that makes sense. But if consciousness is this huge, mysterious thing, where do we even start exploring it? It feels kind of overwhelming.
You're right, it can be a lot. But I think it comes down to paying attention, quieting your mind, and listening to that inner voice.
So things like meditation can help, getting out of our heads and into our bodies, into the present moment.
Absolutely. Meditation is really good for calming the mind. becoming more aware, connecting to that deeper part of yourself. And remember those ancient sites. I think they can play a part in this too.
Oh, right. We keep coming back to them like they're at the center of this whole mystery.
They are. Those sites were built to work with the Earth's energies, and I think they can still help us connect to a deeper understanding. But it's not just about going there as a tourist. It's about going with respect and open mind and being willing to listen to what they have to teach.
It's like going on a pilgrimage, not just the sightseeing trip.
Exactly. And that brings us back to what we've learned in our deep dive into Earth grids and ley lines. We've seen evidence that ancient cultures knew a lot about the Earth's energies and how to use them. They might have used those energies for healing, for expanding their consciousness, for connecting across the world, maybe even for building incredible things.
It's like they tapped into this hidden order in the universe, this symphony of energy and vibration that we've forgotten about.
That's a great way to put it. And we may never know everything they knew, but I think the most important lesson is that there's more to the world than we see. The Earth is alive, full of energy and connections. And if we can reconnect with that ancient wisdom, maybe we can find a way to live that's more whole, more balanced, more in tune with the natural rhythms of life.
That's an inspiring thought to end on. So, what's next for our listeners? What can they do to learn more about this and maybe even experience it themselves?
Well, I think the key is to be open to new ideas. Question what you think you know and trust your gut. Read more about earth grids and ley lines, check out the research, visit some ancient sites if you can. But most importantly, get out in nature, connect with the earth, and listen to what it tells you. You might be surprised by what you find.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive has been amazing, and I hope everyone listening is feeling as inspired as I am. Who knew that looking at old myths and mysterious stone structures would lead us to these big questions about consciousness, energy, and our place in the universe?
It is pretty incredible, isn't it? This is just the beginning of the journey, and there's a whole world of amazing things out there to explore.
So, until next time, keep those minds open, stay connected, and keep adventuring.